Hey, welcome to the Cam and Otis Show. This week, we're going to focus on focus. How fun is that? I think I'll probably end up saying focus a lot today. And the reason we're focusing on focus, or our theme for the show, how about that? How about that,
There we
Kim?
go.
There we go. There we go. I'm using my synonyms, right? Uh, we're
Got to
gonna
break that
our
thesaurus out.
yeah. Well, I was struggling with what that word was too. But our theme for the show is focus, and the reason our theme for the show is focus is because that's our word for the year, our word for tribe and purpose.
Mhm.
And for me personally, and Camden, are you following the same path I am?
I am focusing on focus this year.
Oh, awesome, awesome. Because you know, there's life is too complicated to have a whole bunch of things going on.
Mhm.
So, and I'll just give credit where credit's due on this because Jesse Itzler, I was looking at one of his feeds, I think it was on Instagram, and he made a comment about, what's your one word? And I said, well, I don't know. And I had to think about it. And I said, what'd be a great word for me is focus. And then as we started to rebrand to tribe and purpose, it's like, this is a great word, a great way to guide us with tribe and purpose, and the Cam and Otis show, and that support of, what's the theme. So focus is it. So what are you going with on focus there, Camden?
Yeah, so I think focus is great because it's a kind of overarching theme to where when you start focusing and you really have that focus, your life is going to be so much better in so many different ways because you are focused on what you're doing. So without going into the cliche graduation speech Merriam-Webster definition, focus is having clearly defined vision. I think we can all get along with just that little definition right there. When you're looking at something, we have this whole field of vision that we're looking at, but there's only that really small pinpoint that you're actually focusing on inside your plane of vision, right? And that's just like life. I think that's a pretty self-explanatory metaphor there, where there's so much going on and you only get to focus on one little bit of it at a time. And what you choose to focus on has a really, really profound repercussions for the rest of your life, I think.
Well, it helps guide what everything you're doing, right?
Mhm.
Whether you're in control of it or not, it guides you. I always like to talk about the importance of having a plan, and by having a plan, it provides you focus. That's what a
Mhm.
plan helps do for you. But the other thing that focus and the plan does is when things get out of focus, you get knocked off your plan, you can come back to it. And I'm
Mhm.
sitting here thinking, I just came back from hunting, and with the binos, you pull your binos up and you go to look, and it's like, oh, I can't see nothing. Right. So what do? Well, the first thing you do is, I mean, to get into a little bit of the, as technical as I'm ever going to get on the way binos work, is they got a big knob in the middle between the two lenses, right? You turn that because that's the distance focus.
Mhm.
And if I'm looking for something way out there, I've got to readjust the focus as opposed to something that may be, just a couple of 100 meters away as opposed to 2,000 meters away. And I've got to adjust that. And when I adjust my focus, I get clarity of what I'm seeing.
Mhm.
I can start to see a better picture of what it looks like off in the distance. And that's what we can do with focus in our lives and in what we're doing in our business and our lives, is we adjust that knob, if you will, so that we can have a clearer point to our vision, what we see as our vision, because that's where we're focused on, right? We want to achieve our vision.
Exactly. And I think, the other piece I was going to say, and I'll use this very specific metaphor because it'll work for all of our Coloradans out there. You're driving down south on I-25 and you go look at those beautiful mountains off to your right. What's going to happen? You taught me this when I first learned how to drive. You're going to start drifting at that next lane over because when you're focused on something, that's what you're going to drift towards. Now, I-25 is your plan there. And you can stick on your plan, you can go back to it. But if you keep focusing on those mountains, if you keep watching the squirrels run by the window or whatever your distractions are that you're focusing on, you're going to keep drifting away from that. And you're going to cause an accident or at the very least not get where you're going very fast.
I always think of the hotel treadmill, because I don't know how many times I've been in a hotel and I've been on a treadmill running, and for one reason or another, the treadmill's here and the TV's over there. And you're trucking along, and you see, oh, what's that? And next thing you know, you've stepped off the tread onto the part that's not moving, which is an interesting test of your agility. Let's just say that.
Oh
And
yeah. And us
that's it.
tall folks are already struggling on treadmills. That's already
Oh
not
yeah,
our strong suit. No.
that's right. That's right. So coming back to that, where you're going, the direction you're going should be your focus. So it brings
Mhm.
you having that focus every time you drift off, you can come back to it. You can regain that picture of what your vision is if you focus on it.
Mhm. And I think, when it comes down to focus, it's really about identifying what's important and what's not. And, actually, I'm going to go back to my little analogy there because as I'm talking through this, it makes a lot of sense. Those mountains are beautiful. We all love those mountains. I miss them just about every day when I'm walking around here. When I look at my little tiny mountains here in Tucson, I miss the big, beautiful Rocky Mountains up there, right? Doesn't mean it's necessarily important, though. And that's what focus comes down to. It's about recognizing what's important and what's not. And then really, it doesn't mean you get rid of everything in your life that's not important, but it's about not focusing on those type of things, not making them a priority, prioritizing what your purpose is, prioritizing what your focus is so that you can move forward along.
Yeah, I mean that's that critical piece. So if you have focus on your vision, then you know that does this support, does this task, does this email, phone call, whatever, help support me going towards my vision, my
Mhm.
purpose? Does it fall within my purpose to fulfill my purpose and help me achieve success? That's what focus will help you do if you do it. And it's I feel like we're using the word a little too much to really define it. In order to have focus, you should focus. Well, no, in order to have focus, you should have a plan and a clear vision of what you need to do.
Mhm.
And if you don't know what you need to do, this is always the thing that holds so many people up. If you have a vision of something, you want to start Acme Pottery, the Acme Pottery store, right? That's your vision that you want to create. Well,
Mhm.
you don't have any idea where to go, how to get there, but you want to focus on that. And when you focus on that, you can take steps towards that, the Acme Pottery store, and to see which way, and then realize, well, no, come back over here because my vision just got out of focus.
Mhm.
So if I take three steps off to the left here, in the 9 o'clock direction, thinking that's the right way, and then realize no, that's not, because now my vision just got further away and is out of focus. I
Mhm.
need to adjust and come back to get that focus on it again. And
Right. And
something else that I thought was really great was the you can do things that are outside of your focus that are going to dilute it, if you will,
Mhm.
cause it to get out of clarity, cloudy, can't see it quite as well. But you can always come back to it if you have that known point to start from or go back to.
Yeah, and that's where I think you tying it to planning makes a lot of sense. Because when we talk about planning, that's really what it is. To use the word focus again. If I'm focusing on walking out towards a mountain, and my goal is to get to the top of that mountain that I see off in the distance, you can go left and right, but as long as you're moving forward in general the whole time, you're going to keep moving towards your goals. And that's what it's really about with focus too. Just like we're talking about the literal focus of your plan of vision, right? How often while we're doing a podcast here do one of us go and dart off to the side? Does that mean that we're not
Chasing
focused on what
rabbits,
we're doing? Chasing
chasing
rabbits,
rabbits or
exactly.
squirrels.
But just because you break your focus for a moment does not mean that you can't come back to it. It's all about coming back to your focus. And that's why I think it's such a great theme for a year, because you want to break down what your goals are, do your resolutions, all that kind of stuff. We encourage you, of course, to break that down into tasks and objectives from another point and focus on those outcomes that you're going to get throughout the year. But if you never have any of those identified, you're just going to be running all over the place. That's where I think focus and plan are really right hand in hand, because if you're not having any sort of vision for where you want to be a year from now, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, you're never going to stay on track, because you're just going to chase every single rabbit, and you're going to go down every single rabbit hole, and you're going to pop up and you're going to start chasing another rabbit. And that's what focus allows you to do, is to avoid chasing those rabbits for too long, at least.
Well, you know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of goose hunting or duck hunting, because that flock of 20 or 30 birds comes up in the air, and you're thinking, well, I got a shotgun. It's got, 112 pellets in it, or whatever whatever they are anymore. I can't remember. And I'm just going to shoot at the group. And you know what? When you shoot at the group, you hit nothing. Now that's the same thing. It is, if you try to do everything, you get nothing. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a really important piece when we talk about focus, and particularly in business, and in your life too. But I can think of business examples much easier, and people clients and other folks I've talked to over the years who are, well, I want to do this and I want to do that, and I want to help these people, and I want to create this, and what if I did that? And they're all over the map. And because they're all over the map, they never end up succeeding at what they truly say their purpose is. And what their purpose is, they know what their purpose is, but they keep diluting it because they think their purpose needs to have this, or they need to help this group or that group, or, I want to save the sea turtles now. And oh, by the way, while I'm saving the sea turtles, I want to help service dogs, and blah, it just goes on and on and on. And it's like, no, come on back, pick one thing out and focus on that. Mm-hmm. Not to say that, just like you said earlier, not to say you can't do something else, but if you focus on that with your business and all your effort and all your team together, you're going to have a heck of a lot more success than if you try to do all these things all over the map, because that just dilutes your product, dilutes your effort, and you can't push them all forward at the same time.
And what that connects for me, and I think about this a lot, really just because it's something I'm passionate about. I like to help people, and I want to help as many people as I can. I don't think I necessarily call it my purpose, but it's underneath the umbrella of my purpose, I would say. And when you look at helping people, it's kind of just like you're saying. If you try to help everyone, you're not going to help anyone. You're better off focusing your effort into one direct area and having a real impact in that than you are trying to spread yourself thin to everything. And that's where my mind went when you were talking, because you named, the sea turtles and C&I dogs, and God damn, that stuff's sad. And if you focus on that and you focus on how sad it is, it's going to pull you down. You're going to stay in that sadness, and that's all you're going to want to do. But if you compartmentalize that into your plan, you say, look, I'm going to go be a successful businessman, then I'm going to sell that, and I'm going to dedicate the last 50 years of my life to saving every sea turtle I can save. That's a focus, and it connects, and everything's a piece of one plan. And because you have that focus, you're still using the sea turtles as the focus. Keep in mind, you're still using those sea turtles, but you put into an actionable plan to where you're using that focus to drive you on a daily basis rather than pulling you down on a daily basis. And I think that really goes into, what's inside your control and what's outside your control. And I think, talking about helping people is the easiest example for this. And I know I'm an economist, so I'm on the cold-hearted end of the spectrum when it comes to this, of course. So forgive me, and forgive me ahead of time. But most of these types of problems are very much outside your control. The sea turtles, gosh, I would love to help sea turtles, but I can't go help a sea turtle right now. I would have to work so extremely hard to save.
Wait, time out. What about that song, Oceanfront Property in Arizona? I mean,
I've been driving around. I've been down here for 7 years. I have yet to see this oceanfront property. they were singing about. It's got to be somewhere. It must be expensive and tucked away somewhere. It's got that Golden Gate Bridge on it too, right?
Uh-huh.
But it's focusing on what's inside your control and what's outside your control. And that doesn't mean that things aren't important, or that they're not things that you can focus on, or you can think about things. You can have things that you're playing into that are important parts of your life that are outside of your control and that you like to think about. But the key there is, if that becomes your primary focus, you lose control of the rest of your life. If you want to sit there and dream about how many sea turtles you're helping and put in all of that effort, but you're in landlocked Arizona or landlocked Colorado, you're not really going to be moving forward on that. And you have to, and what's going to happen in the meantime, Dad, you're going to lose control over the rest of what you have control over. And you're going to wind up in a position where no matter how focused you are on those sea turtles, because you didn't have a plan, you didn't have any way to put things forward, because you weren't focusing on what's inside your control, you're not actually helping anybody.
Well, when you're focused, those other things around you, you can decide whether or not they're important. How do those things affect what you're trying to achieve, and do they support, going back to what I said earlier, do they support your ability to fulfill your purpose and achieve your success? And we were talking earlier, and this is one of my favorite super simple tools, the Eisenhower decision matrix. I mean, General Eisenhower, President Eisenhower, was a pretty brilliant man, what he came up with. And really part of his success, I believe, was his personal discipline. I mean, you read about what he did during World War II. I mean, the shit was hitting the fan. The Nazis were freaking bombing London, and he would take time off from the headquarters to clear his mind, to refocus, and ensure he had the ability to solve the problem, as opposed to driving through and continuing to drive through, which I've seen many people do.
Boss time.
Yeah. Well, and so there's the Eisenhower decision matrix, and I don't remember the exact terminology, but basically it's 4 squares, and everything falls into those 4 squares. And start with the one that's the simplest. It's is it important, and does it need to happen now? Mm-hmm. Timely? Is it time constrained? So that's your bottom right square. And then to the left of that is it important, and it doesn't have to happen right now. So now we've got our 2 bottom squares. Then we go back up to the top right. Does it need to happen right now? And it's not important. So think about that. And then the 4 square, guess what the 4 square is? It ain't important. It ain't got to happen right now. And there's a whole lot of things in our lives that will fit into that 4 square that we don't put in that 4 square, guaranteed. General Eisenhower was extremely well disciplined and did that a lot, and taught his staff to do that also. So if you just think about that sort of thing in your life, those 4 squares, and if you're not familiar with the Eisenhower decision matrix, you can just Google it and it'll pop up, and variants of it, but it's really just 4 squares. Right. And everything, all the things that pop up, the putting out the fires and all those sort of things we always talk about, can fall into one of those 4 squares. And if you use that as a tool to guide you, then you don't get pulled off of what's important. Your focus on what you want to achieve, and really, even for the day, in that application for, what's your day-to-day application of your focus, Cameron?
Yeah, I think that on a day-to-day basis, well, one, I think that having a good focus is like having a purpose, and because really you're focusing on your purpose. It gets you going in the morning. It's the thing that gets you out of bed. It's the thing that gets you, to curl out or get out of that nice warm bed that you're curled up in, right? And I think that when you start to identify things that aren't, and start identifying them as not only important and not important, but urgent and non-urgent, you're going to wind up seeing the world so much more clearly. You're going to have a much more clear focus of what you're looking at, because especially Like, oh my gosh, I could show it for the cameras of how long my to-do list is for this week, because I'm a to-do list person. You've pushed back on me. I know we're on different sides of the to-do list camp. I do use outcomes, so I went towards yours a little bit to stay on my focus. But
Mm.
there's so many things on there that don't necessarily need to get done. And they're that fourth quadrant that we were talking about, where they're not important, they're not time sensitive, and they wind up on the to-do list anyway. And if you're not able to assess those items as what they are, then you're going to wind up spending less times on things that do matter. And that really, I think, gets into your focused work versus your your non-focused work. Because when you get in and you're completely just dead focused on something, one, time flies while you're working. I can tell you that much. I spent 6 hours on the business plan on my business plan on Tuesday. I didn't even look up. I was just typing the whole time because I was just singularly focused on what I was doing in front of me, and singularly focused on how important this was to me and how important it was to my purpose in the end. And when you're not focused at work, and that doesn't mean that you're staring out the window not paying attention, that means that you're working on 10 things at once, or you're spinning all the different plates like we've talked about. How many plates can you spin at once? How many different things are you trying to fit into your day, rather than just saying, look, today is a verby day, today is a tribe and purpose day, whatever it is, and I'm going to go, and that is what I'm thinking about throughout the day. Because that's the big difference when you have focused work versus non-focused work. And it's the reason that focused work is so much more productive, is because with that theme in the back of your mind, with your focus going the whole time, every time you get pulled away, you're getting pulled back into it. And when you take a break to go get a cup of coffee, you're pulling apart that problem in the back of your mind because you're focused on it. You're not just letting your mind wander on to the next thing. It's like, no, I'm here for the next 6 hours, and this is what I'm going to solve during that time. And when you have that kind of focus, you'll realize that you solve more of those problems. You're more productive in that sense. But then also, I think the casual problem solving, as I would call it, is off the charts. The sit down for dinner ideas that you come up with are off the charts when you're focused. That's where I think there's a huge gap, because you can be productive to some extent and not be focused on work, but the outcomes you're getting, the problems you're solving, are so much lower level than what you would get when you're focused.
Well, I'll put it this way. So, in that sense, if you can be productive, I disagree with you. You can get a lot of shit done,
That's yes.
but you
That's the
ain't
distinction.
productive. Because at the end of the day, you go, holy crap, I'm tired. What did I do? I don't know, but I'm tired and I got a lot done, but I have no idea what it was. And that's where, in the practical application of focus, and I put this out there as a challenge for everybody to take time in your day, set aside time in your day and call it focus time, label it focus time with intentionality, and take everything else away and do one thing at a time, one thing at a time. Everything else is turned off. And I always, this is my best example, best personal example of it is when I was writing my book.
Mhm.
That's what I did. Each day I had an hour to write my book. And I sat down, and that was all I did. My phone, I didn't silence my phone. I turned my phone off. I
Mhm.
closed out all other programs on my computer. And everybody in the household knew that was the time. Don't even come to the door, because for that hour, I'm not answering the phone. I'm not doing anything else. I'm doing that one task and focusing on that one task. Now, don't get wrapped around the axle that you have to do one task for that whole thing, but you
Right.
do one task at a time, and that is focus time. And I guarantee when you do that, you will realize that you get more done by
Mhm.
doing one task at a time than what our buddy Bill Gates and Steve Jobs have done for us with all the multiple windows and tabs and buttons and things like that, and buzzes on our phone and all those sort of things. You're not getting good stuff done. You're getting half-assed done. So
Mhm.
focus, use your mind, just shut everything else off and focus on that thing and get that thing done, then move on to the next thing.
Mhm.
So the challenge is set aside for yourself every day a block of time whatever it is. You can start with 15 minutes, you can start with an hour, you can start with 6 hours, like Ken was talking about with his business plan. But set aside time in your day, every day, for focus time, and
Mhm.
do something one at a time in that focus time.
And I think I love what you did there because you actually set me up for what was I was going to call my entrepreneur lesson of what we're talking about here, which is not saying this day I'm solving this problem and that's all you focus on. And you're getting calls and emails from your team and you're just ignoring them all because you're focused on this. You have a job to do. You have a responsibility to the rest of your team. You know, we can get into that social multiplier effect of your performance on other people. That's a whole another rabbit hole. But you can multitask, you can do all these different things, but it's about defining the parameters of when that's happening. If you have a business plan to write, set aside 4 hours for the day for your business plan where you're just in on that. Then you're off and you can chase every rabbit that you need to chase for your business. Because unfortunately, we have to chase a lot of rabbits. That's how it works. There's a lot of things that you have to do that aren't necessarily that important, but the second and third order effects behind them are, and you got to keep things moving as a CEO, right? So it's about defining those parameters of when you're focusing and when you're non-focused. And when you're non-focused, it's about going and, like we said, chasing all those rabbits and making sure you're doing all the underlying things that you need in order to have that focused time. You got to set yourself up for your success in that sense.
Well, and I was just thinking about this, what motivates you to have that focus is the outcome that you achieve by being focused.
Mm-hmm.
So when you take off your path, you step away from that focus, like every time I pull my binos off up, I don't know how it happens, but I've always got to adjust the daggum dial, right? Uh, every single time. So something outside, truthfully, in all sense, it's me bumping it, I'm sure, but outside of my control is changing my focus. And that change is outside of my control, number one. And if I allow it to distract me, number two, I'm helping somebody, I'm doing what somebody or something else wants me to do as opposed to what I want to do. And
Mm-hmm.
we're a heck of a lot more happy when we're focused on something, achieving something, and intentional in those actions.
Right.
That's human happiness, going to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and the fifth hierarchy of need, and that accomplishment.
Mm-hmm.
That's what we're getting by doing that, and the recognition also. So without going
Yeah.
too far, the psychological
Well,
rabbit.
and that tees me right up for my behavioral economics, of course, which is going to Richard Thaler, who his one of his main things he defines as far as the economic creature that we all are is we have these two minds in our head, the thinker and the doer. And we've gone through, I don't know the episode number, but I know we've gone through and talked about this in pretty good detail at some point. But basically, what you're doing when you have a focus, when you have a purpose, when you have something that's driving you every day, you're tricking your doer, and that's what it comes down to. So to give the quick illustration, the thinker is the person last night raising my hand who planned out my entire day and how productive I'm going to be and all the good stuff I'm going to get done and when my focus time is and when my non-focus time and all that stuff. The doer is the person who snoozed my alarm at 5 a.m. and slept a little bit late. When you have a focus, you're tricking that doer, because I can tell you, if I didn't have a podcast, if I didn't have Verbi, if I didn't have Tribe and Purpose, if I didn't have rugby or any of those things that I love and that are my purpose in life and I'm focused on, if I didn't have any of those, I could have snoozed that alarm till 8, 9, 10. I probably wouldn't even gone to sleep till midnight last night. But you trick the doer into making those decisions that aren't necessarily going to pay off in the short run, but they're paying off in the long run. And that's what focus does for you, is allows you to trick that doer into looking at the long run rather than just what's right in front of their face.
Yeah, I mean, you use that decision matrix. You use whatever tool that you want to use to make sure that everything that you do is the important thing. And I'll paraphrase a Marcus Aurelius quote. It's give importance to the things that are important. That's key to this. And when you have focus, you know what things are important. So then you give effort
Mm-hmm.
to what's due because it's important. as opposed to, I mean, whatever it is, answering that email, researching something that, really, it may or may not be important, but it's probably not at this point. So why are you doing it? So take that effort and put the importance on the
Mhm.
things that are important and the amount of time and effort equal to how important it is.
Mhm.
And
I
use that to help yourself in deciding which box it goes to into
mhm.
in the Eisenhower decision makers
And
matrix.
I think the urgency is the other piece of that. We've talked about the importance of things, but there's also the urgency. So I'll take okay. So I was going to go off on the political example, but those are too easy. So I like to think about more complicated ones, or not complicated, but different ones. So we were talking about the Cowboys a few weeks ago. It's not a happy time to be a Cowboys fan. So
But the
Cowboys are
offseason, we're
important.
not losing any more games.
Hey, so maybe it is a happy time. But as Cowboys fans, we're looking forward, the Cowboys are important to us. It's important to us to watch the game, right? Do we need to know every little move that's happening in the roster right now? Do we need to know what Kellen Moore is thinking for the next season or what Jerry Jones just said or anything like that? No, it's all non-urgent. Because I tell you, I'll tell you the same thing I tell people I work with all the time. If this story is going to be more well defined and more clear and easier to understand and more accurate in 2 weeks. And you're wasting your focus on something that isn't all the way formed and you're speculating and you're doing all this kind of stuff. Creativity is draining and speculation is creativity. And if you let yourself go down those rabbit holes, you're going to lose your productivity, not just because you're not focused, because you're going to be tired from putting all the energy into all this other stuff that's important, but it's not time sensitive. And in reality, you can put pause on that. You can shut off your phone for an hour and you can watch ESPN tonight or whatever it is that is going to condense that time down so that it's more efficient and it's not distracting you from what you want to be doing.
Oh, that's great. And I think, man, this has been helpful and fun to explore. So, what'd you learn, Camden?
I wasn't 100% sure we were going to do this today because we didn't mention it ahead of time. I'm used to having the green room conversation where I get to write down learned with a big star at the bottom of my page, but I do have something. So what you were saying of just when you corrected me, productivity versus just getting stuff done. And I think that's a really, really important distinction when you're looking at your productivity and work and, your outcomes and all that kind of stuff. That productivity is actually getting, the right things done. It's getting the proper outcomes, following your plan, all that kind of stuff, not just checking a bunch of boxes that are going to leave you tired, but without an outcome.
Yeah,
How about
no, that's great, and it's a lesson that you have to remind yourself of daily. Even once the habit is formed, you still got
oh,
to go, man, because there's so many things to distract you and pull you on that.
oh, the
And
amount the amount of times the Seneca quote, and I had it in my notes, I got to force it in there. Be ruthless to that which doesn't matter. That's all about focus right there. And the
yeah,
amount of times that comes to mind as I'm answering a phone call or shooting somebody a text or wanting to go play a video game or whatever it is, it's you got to be ruthless to that stuff and you got to remind yourself of it daily because it's going to keep sneaking back up on you.
yeah, it will. Well, what I learned and putting on the dad hat, it's like, wow, you spent 6 hours focused on your business plan the other day. Good for you. I didn't know you could focus for that long. That's awesome.
I can get into my rabbit hole every now and then. I put on that nice coffee house jazz.
Yep.
Focus in.
Go. You don't even have to go to the coffee house now with modern technology,
Oh
right?
yeah. Shout out Spotify. Killing the
That's right.
coffee house business.
Awesome. This has been fun. I think this new format is going to be a lot of fun and enjoyable. And I think as our listeners get used to it, they're going to get a lot more out of it too. So Camden, why don't you run us out?
All right. Thank you all again for listening to today's show. Special thanks to our sponsors, Verbi Virtual Events and Tribe and Purpose. You can check out recent episodes of the Cam and Otis Show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, and check out a full archive at thecamandotisshow.buzzsprout.com. The Cam and Otis Show is on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks again, and we'll see y'all next week.